views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Welcome, good people of the Bronx and beyond. My name is Christina Pagán, and I'm your host for A Life in Art. On this show, we'll bring you engaging and personal conversations with artists with whom you may not be familiar. People who have been working on their craft for at least a decade and are at a crossroads where passion meets necessity. We'll discuss creativity and inspiration with our guest artists, but also find out what it takes to balance the struggles of practical life while pursuing their passions. Our guest today is a film producer, director, and writer. He is co-executive producer of the production company Novo Novus. His film, Boys Like You, won Best Male Short in the North Carolina International Gay and Lesbian Film Festival. Today we learn about Daniel Armando's life and art.
So, Jimmy asked me out on a date last night. I think I'm gonna go.
Where's your date?
Who's your date? I need to hang out with you more. You're better than any girl I've ever been with. You are.
You should talk to him. And my guess is you won't. Boys like you and him never do.
And we are on set with Daniel Armando. Danny, so thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Of course, of course. So we met working at New World Stages many moons ago. And actually, I had no idea that you were into film or anything until you actually had started doing it. Like, that was pretty crazy to me. But let's start in the beginning. Where were you born? Where are you from?
Where's everyone? I was born in Los Angeles, California. Hollywood, California, to be exact. Off of Kaiser Permanente Hospital on Sunset Boulevard. And then I grew up and was raised in Victorville, California, which is the valley of north of Los Angeles. And so that's where my parents kind of moved us, and I kind of just grew up there. And then I think when I was 18, I went to New York, and now I've been here for like 15 years now.
Wow.
So.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I do. I have one younger brother and two older sisters. The two youngest are in Nevada, and then me and the oldest sister are here in New York. She lives in Long Island.
Does any of your other siblings have any artistic inclinations, or is it just you?
They don't. I've been the only one. I'm the only one that kind of went with it and kind of pursued it, and everybody else went in a different direction.
When do you think that it first hit you that you were interested in film, television, the arts?
When I was young, definitely once I started school and all the little theater programs, because I started off in theater, even though I guess my first kind of love was film, because that's the first thing you see as a kid is films. But in school, theater was really big, and so I started to get involved in all those little theater programs and whatever school play or musical my school was doing, and just kind of went along with that and just kind of did that and followed that and pursued that.
Is that what brought you to New York? 'Cause I mean, you were already in California. Hollywood, film, television is big there.
Yeah.
So did you come to New York for theater?
I did. I think at the time I was applying at a lot of conservatories, and then I got accepted into one in New York City, the American Musical and Dramatic Academy. And so I just decided to go with that, and that was kind of like my gateway to leave California and leave home and go to the Big Apple and do the whole New York thing. So.
What was your experience like at AMDA?
It was good. I mean, I was 18 years old, so I never had lived outside of my parents' house, and I never had lived outside of California or anywhere else. So thinking back on it now, I'm like, wow, that's pretty crazy that at 18, I really didn't have any money or anything. And I really didn't know anybody in the city. I only had my sister who lived in Long Island. But for me, it was exciting. It was the best time ever. I learned a lot about myself, about being Latino, because I was around other Latin actors and performers, and just kind of was able to explore all mediums of theater and really branch out and see what the business had to offer.
So that's interesting that you bring that up. So you're Latino, right? What kind of Latino are you?
What kind of my dad's from Mexico and my mom is from El Salvador.
All right. So, but that's pretty typical, I would say, in like Southern California, right?
Yeah.
So moving to New York is a different type of Latino.
It
Did that change
is.
your perspective?
It is. It was the first time I really was encountering like Afro Latinos and the different slang that like Puerto Ricans and Dominicans have, and just basically that Spanish is not just Spanish for everybody. There's different types of Spanish because cultural. There's different kind of from every country. You know, everybody has their own way of speaking. So that was kind of new for me because I didn't grow up with Dominicans or Puerto Ricans, and so now it's like I'm versed in the South American, the Puerto Rican, Dominican.
You were kind of inundated with all of that.
Yeah.
Like, don't drown.
No,
I
I'm
wanna
immersed.
drown.
Yeah, I know it all now.
So that's a few different types of culture shocks then for you. From California, sunny California, you know, bright sun everywhere, and then you come to cold New York where everything's kind of in a rush, and then on top of that, the Latino difference. How do you think that's changed you?
It's made me more aware of where my background is and what kind of Latino I am. And it's made me want to learn more about my culture from my dad's side and from my mom's side, and then also just in general the Latino culture, because at the same time we're all the same. You know, we all grew up the same, and we all have the same struggles. The struggles that Puerto Ricans and Dominicans have here, the same and similar struggles that Mexicans and El Salvador people and have in California. And so I saw the similarities and also the differences, which is great.
What were some of the things that, so you said you had a great experience in AMDA. Were you for musical theater? Were you strictly drama?
I did musical theater, because that's, in high school I had done a lot of musicals, and so I kind of went with that. And then it's a little bit more fun to do musicals, I think, because you know, you're dancing, you're singing, and it's more vibrant, and everybody's just so happy, and the musicals are happy. So I just I went right into that and just studied musical theater for 2 years at AMDA.
Our co-host and co-producer Henry would disagree with you on that. He's not a musical fan, as our watchers know, as our viewers know that he.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I'm really nervous about musicals, like, and actually being in them, and I've been in a lot of them. But the whole experience for me has been like, that's my extreme sport. It's like bungee jumping or skydiving, because it is a pretty scary thing to all of a sudden have to sing and dance and act
all together
at the same time,
Right.
and to try to learn all aspects of musical theater. I mean, that's pretty tough. So
Did you have any struggles like trying to find roles that fit you, or did that work out fine for you?
I did. I think early on at school, I knew that I needed to find what my niche or what my thing was. And being Latino, I became immersed, and I started to follow a lot of the Latin musicals and a lot of the shows that kind of featured Latinos or different ethnicities. And one of the main shows that kind of brought me out to New York was Rent when that came out, because I was in high school when the show had come out on Broadway. And so seeing that for the first time, seeing this musical on Broadway with a diverse Latinos and African Americans and Asians, and in a very like urban setting, I thought that was amazing. So I was like, great, there's a place for me in there, in the musical theater world, in the Broadway world. And so that's kind of like what led me into the musical theater world in New York, and to pursue that. And since that, I didn't have that much trouble. I knew the musicals to go for, the roles that I would be right for, and I just went for them.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to stop. So when we get into our second segment, we'll get into that a little bit farther. We have to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more about Daniel when we return.
Teachers today are finding new ways to instill old lessons, proving that greatness can be found in everyday places, and that you don't need to be famous to be unforgettable.
People think I'm trash, but they're wrong. Today I'm just an aluminum can, but one day I could be a stadium.
and welcome back to A Life in Art. We're here with producer-director Daniel Armando. So, Danny, we were talking about a musical theater being your extreme sport and finding your niche in New York. So, how did your experience as an actor turn out here, going on auditions and after you got out of school?
It was great. I loved it. I was able to travel and go to places that I never would think of going.
Where did you end up going?
One of my first things was Fame the Musical in Switzerland.
Lovely.
And then I was able to do Evita in Hilton Head Island, North Carolina,
Wow.
which was beautiful. And then I did a show called Altar Boys in Ashland, Oregon, which is another great.
I love Altar Boys.
Yeah. But yeah, so the show was fun, and then being up there in the mountains and up in Oregon was beautiful. And yeah, and then I've been able to tour. So
So what brought you to New World Stages then?
I think at the time I was kind of looking for like a day job type thing, and something that was kind of flexible. And they had just opened. It was like a brand new theater. There was only one show there. It was like the Mandy Patinkin one-man show.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I remember I got hired, and I was brought in, and I assured one of the shows or that show. And then like I had booked Evita to do that upstate, and so I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to leave. And they're like, all right, great. Well, let us know when you come back. And then I did the show, and then I came back, and then I booked another show. And I was like, all right, guys, this time I'm probably just gonna have to quit because I'm leaving again. And they're like, no, like whenever you come back, just let us know when you're back. And so it became a really flexible thing. And even doing my films as a director, like I've been able to go away and leave for a couple weeks or a couple days and shoot my films, and then come back and work as a bartender. So
It's been it's a great place because I mean that's where we met. We mentioned, and then a few of our other guests we've had on, Chuck B, Jason Michael Miller.
Everybody's
everyone. Like, I'm gonna have everyone on from New World at some point. But that's where you also met your co-executive producer Dane, right? Can you talk about how you guys started your production company?
Yeah, well, Dane had started it, I think a couple years before I jumped in, and he was working there as an usher, and he was also going to school. He was going to Columbia, and then he was also pursuing acting, and he booked the national tour of Aida. So he came back from that tour and kind of buckled down and started his production company, Novo Novus. And the first thing he started with was a web series, Drama Queens, with a couple of his old hometown buddies. And it became a really big success. It was really, to this day, people always ask him about the show. And it had a really good 3 seasons. And then I kind of jumped in because I saw what he was doing, and I really liked his vision of what he was doing with the company and with Novo Novus and the stuff he was doing. And he had just produced a short film, so it was the first time he was venturing into film. And then after he did that, I think I approached him a couple months later about doing a short film myself, and that was the first time I was venturing into film. And so he jumped on board and said, yeah, let's do it. And so he helped me produce that one, and then after that, he's like, hey, let's start making more films. And so we started to develop other films and other projects, and then I came up with my first feature, What It Was. And then he had written his feature, Subways, which I jumped on as an actor and as a producer on it. And then we just have been going through that, and then we have a couple more things coming out. Currently we have Daddy's Boy, which is now hitting the festival circuit. And then we have another film that's about to come out called Dreamland that we produce. We're both just on as producers, and it's starring Anthony Rapp.
Wow.
And so yeah, we're really excited to get those projects out and do more stuff.
What was that experience like for you? I mean, going from being an actor to wanting to produce, and that's a totally different aspect of the artistic frame of mind. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it is. The short film I did, I was still an actor and I was still auditioning, so I said, all right, I'm gonna put myself in it. I'm gonna put myself as the lead, and then also direct it and then write it. So I was doing all of it, and then I had like my good friend who's somebody who I collaborate a lot, and he does a lot of my cinematography for my films now. Ryan Bayless, he kind of jumped on to kind of help me out and kind of guide me, because it was my first time directing, and then Dane jumped in as producer. And that whole experience was interesting because it was the first time I was acting and directing, And by the time it finished, I was like, all right, I think I need to choose one. I need to choose either be the actor or be the director. And I enjoy the directing more.
Do you?
Yeah.
Why
And
is that?
I don't know. I think I've always liked directing, or I've always liked film and being behind the scenes. But when you're first starting out as a young kid, there's no film camps or,
At least no producer
right,
camps,
there's
no
no
director.
producers camp or anything. I mean, all you have is your parents' camcorder.
Right.
So that's all I had was like my parents' camcorder, making my movies with my friends. So of course, theater is more accessible in school. So that took over more, and I was more forward. So then that just made me realize, that experience made me realize that, oh wow, directing is kind of what I really want to do, and that's always what I kind of wanted to do. And theater has been just something that has been a blessing and has been exciting and wonderful, and I've loved it, every minute of it. But now this new transition of being a director is something that I'm even more excited about and want to keep going and doing and exploring.
We only have a few minutes left in this segment, but I'd love for you to touch on the difference for you between theater and film. What's the approach that you take? How is it different?
The approach, well, a lot of people always say that theater is more of an actor's medium, and then film is a director's medium. And I do believe that, because even working with my actors now, I'm trying to see, okay, where can my skills as an actor, what I've learned as an actor, apply to now directing? And what I found is that with a lot of actors that I work with, they all have their own method and their own way of approaching their characters or film. And they've all come from extensive schools, years of school and education and programs and conservatories. So I think I have to trust them in what they do and just focus on me directing and guiding them, and which becomes a more technical thing. So yeah, the difference is that when in theater, it's more about the actor, because the actor's going to be there the whole entire time on stage. There's no director stopping, so it's a more organic thing. And in film, it's a more technical thing, because everything's close and you're dealing with cameras and lights. And so you kind of just trust the actor that he's able to get that character through without a lot of interference from a director.
I feel like there's more freedom in theater than there is in
Yeah,
film.
definitely, yeah.
And you like the control.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like the control of the vision,
Right.
and then also seeing what an actor can do
What you can
with the
bring out of them.
character and what they can bring. Because at the end of the day, it's them bringing to life these characters and what's written on the page. So it's great. It's wonderful to see that.
Awesome. So we're done for now, but we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more from Daniel right after this break.
Today, 1 out of every 4 American kids is Hispanic. Many of the future doctors who will care for us, the scientists and entrepreneurs of our country, can be your kids. And the Hispanic Scholarship Fund helps you prepare, plan, and pay for your kids' college education.
I already knew that I was going to go to college, from a young age. I definitely want to major in political science, become the mayor or something, make the situation better for other people. My name is Justin, and I am your dividend.
And we're back on A Life in Art with Daniel Armando. So now you are a director. This is how you would describe yourself?
Yes, director,
Writer, producer.
Writer, that could be a little iffy.
So what are some of the subjects that you like to tackle when you do film? When you look at a script that you really want to do, what are you looking for?
Well, the first thing I did, I wrote myself, and it happened to be, it happened to have a lot of LGBT themes in it. And I never thought I would go into that direction, because that's very personal, and it's personal to me. So I never thought that I would put my personal life in the media like that or in film like that. But how everybody says, write what you know and write what's personal to you. So for me right now, I would say as a director, those are the main themes. And with Novo Novus, those are the main themes that we kind of tackle, especially with minorities. Just because you don't see a lot of LGBT films featuring
Minority characters.
You really don't. And I think that's great. I think in the back of my head, I always think, there's some kid out there, some Latino or African American kid or Asian kid who can kind of relate or see themselves on screen. So those are the main themes right now that I look for in the script. When I'm writing my own stuff, it's kind of abstract art house. So it's just me just putting down my ideas and and then trying to capture them on film and trying to get some kind of narrative story out of them. But I had the pleasure of directing a film that a good friend of ours, Adrian, love it, wrote. A great script that had to deal with LGBT themes, and it was personal to her. And I was honored and then blessed that she approached me to direct it. And it was the first time I was directing somebody else's piece. And so that was a whole another learning experience, because she was the actor and she was the producer and the writer. So now I kind of had like a boss and somebody else to go to.
To answer
and
to.
so collaborate in that way. And so that was a great experience. And it was the same kind of themes that we've been dealing with in our films. And so for now, I like to explore that, and I would like to keep exploring that.
I'd like to go back. You were saying the first thing that you did was your own piece that you wrote with LGBT themes and how it was personal. And what does that feel like to be putting yourself out in a medium like that you said you never would have thought you would have been doing?
I guess you could say it's liberating. But also just the fact that you're able to write something down that's personal to you and then see it on film, like see it there, it's portrayed and it's out there. And that's pretty amazing, that's pretty awesome to see that. Like 1 minute it was in your head and the next minute it was on paper, and then now it's up on a screen. So that's a wonderful thing, that's a great thing to see that and to go through that experience from thought to paper to then screen or television.
So then you said you did that piece where you had a boss. So what's the difference between doing your own piece that you've written and then somebody else's? How does that differ?
Well, with the stuff that I do, I'm always the executive producer, and then Dane Joseph is executive producer with me. And so it's just by the time I'm writing it, I can kind of give my own green light, and then Dane also does, and kind of trust me. And what he's really good about is really allowing me to take those risks and go with what my instincts are. And even though he may not agree, or he may be a little hesitant about it, or be like, I don't know about this, but he'll say, you know what, Danny, do it. Go ahead, go full force with it, because at the end of the day, this is your film, and you want to be happy with what you see on the screen. So yeah, and that collaboration, it almost becomes like it is like a friendship of just us, throwing ideas back and forth, and then also encouraging each other in what we want to put on screen or what we want to put on film. With Adrian, who was a really good friend, and she's one of my closest friends. But yeah, I was thinking, oh God, she's like my boss now. I have to kind of answer to her, because she has the final say. I can direct the piece, but she was great she approached me for a reason. She really trusted me, and she really wanted to collaborate with me. And she was with me till the very end. And I was with her till the very end and supporting her, because this was her first feature film. So I was there to make sure that the final result was something that she was happy with. And I think everybody there on that set, from the actors to the producers to the crew and the camera people, we're all there for her, and trying to just support her and make sure that this little dream that she had of making this film came true, and it did, and it was wonderful. It was great.
So you guys work primarily doing films, and you put those out into festivals, or are you also working on the web? What is your main focus?
The web stuff? The web stuff is stuff that we're still kind of working on. I think if the right project comes along, we'll definitely go full force with it and just and make it happen. But right now, I think what's taking over a little bit are the films. Which is great. It's something new for us, and it's something that we want to keep going. And we've had a lot of success with the previous films that we've done, and going to the film festivals. We've been lucky to be in a lot of big film festivals as first-time filmmakers. So we're really blessed and honored to be a part of that. And so I think that's something that we definitely want to keep going. But the web is something that we definitely acknowledge, and we know, especially with drama queens. I think we haven't shot anything for drama queens in
a few years.
Yeah. And still, we get comments on our YouTube channel about how people want it back, or they want another episode. And so we definitely keep that in mind, that we have that, and we have a lot of subscribers on our YouTube channel, and a lot of people who follow us on there. So we definitely, hopefully, we'll get something up there, and that will be just as good. if not better.
The reason I ask is the internet is, you know, a really big part of our lives now, and with all the trolls and the people having negative things to say,
Yeah.
when you put out something that's so personal, like your
Yeah.
piece or whatever, and someone says something ridiculous to you, how do you take that in? How do you not make that personal?
I thought, well, when it comes to the web, anything that because the only thing that was on the web at first was just drama queens. That was the first thing, and so everybody was following drama queens from through YouTube. And so the minute we started to put out our trailers for the films, definitely the comments would come in and be like, "What is this? We want drama queens. What? Take this off. When's drama queen?" So we knew that okay, our audiences are still asking for that, and it's gonna be a slow change for them to start to see this new thing of us doing films and kind of accepting us for our films. If anything more, the feedback that we get is from the film festivals. I mean, the audiences at the different film festivals have been very honest with us about how they feel about the films. And some of them are great critiques and some of them are, you know, not everybody loves it, especially my films in particular. They're very distinct and very personal and very done in a very unique way, I guess. It's not a film for everybody. So I know that making my films, it's going to be a rough battle with trying to get audiences to kind of jump on board and follow it all the way through. And so I kind of put it out there. You know, the film is out there, and and I know that it's going to get feedback, whether it's good or bad. But as long as it's out there and people are watching it.
So we have to close out, but I want people to know where we can find more information and find drama queens and information about Novo Novus.
Well, we have our YouTube channel, Novo Novus Productions, or you can find us on Novo Novus, and then our website, novonovus.com. We keep everything there, all of our films and the web stuff and anything coming up, and so you can follow us there. And then our Facebook, Novo Novus as well, and we'll always be updating it and putting out new information about our films and anything coming up.
And one last question, and we're going to keep it very, very brief. What is something that you would say to a young filmmaker coming up? What advice would you give?
The advice I would give, it is probably to have a clear voice. I think everybody wants to be a filmmaker or an actor or whatever it is they want to be. Just make sure that you have a clear voice and understanding of what you want to say. Because there's a lot of people out there who want to say something and want to use film as a way to do it, or whether it's being an actor or a writer. But what really matters is what you have to say. And it doesn't have to be this prolific thing that's like, oh my God, this amazing thing. But as long as you have a clear voice. And that all comes from just making your work personal. So as a director and a writer, I would say just keep it personal and have a clear voice.
A lot of people want to talk, but they have nothing to say.
Yeah. Or they want to talk, and then they're just saying a whole bunch of stuff. And it's like, if you focus it down and say, this is my clear message of what I want to say, then I think everything else will fall into place, because then other people will agree and follow you and say, all right, I want to support that. How can I?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Danny, for joining us.
Thank you.
It seems we've run out of time. Thanks to Danny for sharing his life and art with us. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. We want to encourage you to connect with us on social media. Visit us on Facebook and YouTube at A Life in Art, and Instagram and Twitter at A Life in Art TV. We'll be back with more stories from emerging artists when we return with A Life in Art.